Okay, so I'm going to start with making a savory salsa fresca with tomatoes and cucumbers, and we're going to use serrano chilies and some fresh epazote and cilantro. So since this is going to be a tomato-based salsa, I like to start with cutting my tomatoes first, so I have kind of a gauge of how much of each other ingredient to add. So I'm just going to cut out the stems from these heirloom tomatoes. And then I'm gonna just chop them up finely. Now this is a nice sharp knife, but if you are cutting tomatoes at home and your knife is not nice and sharp, it's great to use a serrated knife to cut tomatoes. And so you want to think of how the size that you're cutting these tomatoes is the size you want to eat. So small bite-sized pieces. And since we are making salsa today at the farmers market, all of our salsas are going to be fresh salsas, so salsa frescas. So we're not going to do any cooking. So we want to use fresh ingredients that taste great together. And we're going to invite all of you to make your own salsa with us. Okay, so I've got these 3 nice heirloom tomatoes are quite juicy. And then this one is going to be not as juicy, a little bit more firm. Sometimes the tomatoes have some spots on the bottom. You can just cut those off. It's perfect tomato season right now. They could not be riper. This one has a little spot, so I'm just going to throw that out and chop the rest up. Turn your tomatoes so that the skin side is down. They'll be easier to chop. So it's okay if salsa gets messy. My table is leaning a little bit, so all the juice is going to go off the side. But I kind of want to capture that juice and keep it into my salsa. So I'm going to scrape it into the bowl here quickly. So when all of these ingredients are in season and ripe, peppers, tomatoes, herbs, it's just the best to eat salsa fresca all the time. I always keep it in the fridge and pull it out to top any kind of meal that you're making. Put it on breakfast, put it on your salads. Okay, so that's pretty chopped up. Get the big pieces. And then I'm just going to scrape this into my bowl because I want those juices. Now, I know since this is a tomato-based salsa, this is going to be the base, right? So we know this is going to be kind of the main ingredient for our salsa. So any other ingredient we add, we don't want to put more than this amount. So we are going to use some red onion for this salsa. So onion you can overdo. So if you like onion, great. If you don't like onion, you can use shallots. You can dice it really tiny and small, not put a lot, or put a lot if you love it. I happen to really like raw red onion. So I'm going to do about 2/3 of this onion and chop this up. And I think that having the onion pieces smaller than the tomato pieces is nice. So I like to chop mine a little bit finer than I did the tomatoes. Okay, so that's a nice chop for me, and I'm going to put this in to the bowl, and I'll show you the ratio. So you see that's probably about less than 1/4 of the tomato to onion. And then I like to use fresh cucumber in my salsa fresca when they're in season. These are Persian cucumbers, so the skin is really soft and nice, and you can cut up the whole thing. If you use hothouse style cucumbers, you can seed them and skin them. What I do if I want to seed them, these you don't really need to seed, but if you do want to, just cut them in half, and then you just scoop out the middle like this. So if you're using a big cucumber, I like to take the seeds out. But these cucumbers, you can use the whole thing. So I like to cut them in half and then put it skin side down. And then just cut them into strips so that you can cut little squares. So I like to put about half as much cucumber as tomato, or sometimes even more. And again, cucumbers you can have kind of in between dice between the onion and tomato. So I like the onion to be smallest, then the cucumber, then the tomato. But I like to have the crunch of the cucumber. It really gives it a nice freshness. So just one more dice through. Hi. Do you like to eat salsa? No? Have you just not had the right salsa yet? Okay, so now we got our cucumbers in there. It's about half as much as the tomato. And we're gonna do a little garlic in this one. Do we like a lot of garlic or not a lot of garlic today? A lot of garlic today. All right, so these are nice big cloves. Okay, so I'm gonna do 2 cloves because we're doing a lot of garlic. Oh, I forgot to show you that trick. To get the skin off the garlic, you smack it and the skin comes loose. And sometimes I like to cut off that little end. Actually, I'm gonna show you how to mash garlic, the way I learned from an old Cuban grandma. So chop it a little bit, put some salt on it, and you're gonna make kind of a garlic paste. And this is gonna incorporate right in to your salsa. Let me chop it a little more. Mash it and chop it until you get the paste-like consistency. And then it will meld right in. This one's super fresh, so it's not smashing. There it goes. What do you think about that? Looks good?
Are you using kosher salt or is it not?
I like to use sea salts in my salsas because I like the flavor. This salt
is kosher.
Is kosher. It feels like it. Okay, that garlic is nice and mashed. So let's throw that in. And then we're gonna put our chili peppers. So today I got these really nice serranos. This is a green serrano and this one has ripened red on the plant. So I like spicy. So I'm keeping all the seeds in these. And it's just 2 serranos. So for this much salsa, 2 serranos is gonna give you a kick, but not be too crazy. If you don't like such spice, you can always take the seeds and the membranes out. I'm chopping this pretty fine, but also I like to taste the heat, so it's not gonna be like super mashed. And that's not even too much. That's just a little bit of chili, right? Okay, what else do we need? Fresh herbs. So Gianna brought some epazote from her garden, which is this beautiful Mexican herb that we like to put in our beans. But when it's fresh, my favorite thing is to put it in my potato taquitos. But it's great in salsa. So I'm gonna use a little bit of that, the fresh epazote. And I'm gonna use some cilantro. So I think that like the stems and everything have great flavor on cilantro. So when I'm using it, I wash the whole bunch and then I just tear off stems and all. And I fold them up. I'm gonna wrap the epazote in there too. And then we're just gonna chop this into our salsa. Okay, so now we did do a little bit of salt with the garlic, right? But I know I'm gonna need a little bit more salt. And then we're gonna stir this up. And we're gonna taste it before we decide if we wanna add anything else, like lime juice, vinegar, olive oil. Okay, who wants to be my first taste tester?
Come on up. Grab a chip. Try it.
See what you think, and then we're gonna see if we're gonna add something.
Salsera?
Thank you. Beautiful.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm gonna try one and tell you what I think, and you guys tell me what you think.
You don't want the salsa? Okay, then I'll do this.
I think it's really bright and fresh and needs acid. So, we have a couple choices for acid. We have vinegar. A lot of times I like to add a little red wine or apple cider vinegar to salsa. Or today we have lime. So I'm going to use lime today. So when I'm buying limes at the store, I always look for the smooth lime, not the bumpy limes. They're juicier. And then I roll it on the counter to release the juices. And this is one of my favorite kitchen tools ever. Squeeze that lime juice right in there. So we'll stir that in. And now Salsa Fresca is always going to get better as it sits for a little bit. I make it and put it in the fridge for like an hour or two before we use it. Okay, let me do one more taste test. Now, did you think that one was spicy? Did you try it?
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad, right? We could have used more, and you never know if your peppers are going to be hot or not. So I think it's almost there, but it needs a little more salt. So the key to making sauce of any kind is to keep testing it and add little to little till you get it to where you want it. Okay, I'm gonna think that this is great. So who wants to try it?
Yeah, I'll try that.
Okay, get in here.